Okay, lovely. So good evening. Thank you for joining today's lesson. And what's going to happen is I'm going to go through a few ratio exam questions with you. Obviously, it's a short lesson today, so there won't be much time for me to give you an opportunity to try the question first. I'm going to basically walk you through the exam techniques and where you need to get the exam marks from. If you have any questions at all during this session, please do just write in the chat, and if I don't get a chance to answer it while I'm going through the questions, I'll answer them at the end as well. Okay, I'm just letting a few more people join on. Let me hide. Okay, lovely. So let's get started. So I think someone's already written an answer in the chat, which is fantastic. I'll walk you through this question. So the first question is, there are 60 people in a choir. Half of the people in the choir are women. So already you should be working this out as you go along. I always say to my students, especially with the long, lengthy questions, work it out as you go along. Otherwise, the words can all get jumbled up after a while. So half of the people are women. So I would make a note to say that women, we have 30. The number of women in the choir is 3 times the number of men. So that means the number of men would be a third of 30, which is just 10. So going back to the beginning of the question, it said there were 60 people. So if I add up the 30 and the 10 to get 40, then I know that 60 take away 40 is 20. So there are 20 children in the choir. The next part of the question says the number of children in the choir to the number of men in the choir is n to 1. So the ratio of children in the choir is 20. So the number of men in the choir and the number of men was 10. But we want to simplify it down to 1. So what do we do to 10 to get to 1? You divide by 10. So you have to divide the left-hand side as well by 10 to get 2. So n is equal to 2. So I started off with one of the more simpler questions. So if you have any questions at all on this, then please write in the chat. I'm going to move on in a second. I forgot to mention, I will send this out to you, so you have a copy of the questions and the workings as well, if you can't keep up. So the next question. So to those that just arrived, we've already completed one question. And I will send this to you afterwards so you have a copy of it. The question, which was question 6 in an exam paper, given that A over B equals 2 over 5 and B over C equals 3 over 4, find the ratio A to B to C. Well, a lot of students don't realise that ratios can be written as fractions, and the division sign can be written as a ratio symbol. So you could actually write A to B is the same as 2 to 5. So notice that A over B, 2 over 5 is the same as 2 to 5. And B over C can be written as B to C and 3 to 4. Now, the B's here are different. So in order to compare the ratios together, we need to make sure that the B's become the same number. So you have to think, what is the lowest common multiple of 5 and 3? Well, we know that 5 times 3 is 15 and 3 times 5 is 15. So we want to make these both 15, and we times this by 3. So make sure, like with fractions, when you multiply the denominator by a number, you have to multiply the numerator by the same number. Ratios are exactly the same. So if we times B by 3, we have to times A by 3 as well to get 6. Let me just bring this down here. And if we times 3 by 5 to get 15, then we have to times the 4 by 5 to get what C would be. So here we've got A to B to C. Is 6 to 15 to 20. And always double check, can you simplify these? In other words, is there a number that goes into all 3 of these? Which there isn't, so it's the simplest form. Okay, so any questions, please write in the chat. Let me just have a quick look if there's anything. No? Okay, so I'll keep checking as we go along. I'm going to move on to the next question now. Okay, so the questions I've done so far come up in foundation and higher. The ones that I'm going to do towards the end will just be in a higher. Tom and Adam have a total of 240 stamps. The ratio of the number of Tom stamps to the number of Adam stamps is 3:7. So what I would write first is Tom to Adam, 3:7, and I know the total should be 240. So before I even move on to the next part of the question, I want to work out how much Tom got and how much Adam got. So we add up the ratio parts, 3 plus 7. So we know there are 10 ratio parts in total. So I can say that 10 parts is equivalent to 240 stamps. So I work out what one part is by dividing by 10. So 240 divided by 10 gives me 24 stamps. So one ratio part is 24 stamps. If I write this again underneath, so 3:7. So 3 ratio parts, I'd have to times by 24, okay, to get 72 stamps. So Tom got 72 stamps. And what was the name? Adam, who had 7 ratio parts, I times by 24 as well, which gives me 168 stamps. So we've got here how many stamps Tom and Adam got. If we go back up to what the question said, Tom buys some stamps from Adam. The ratio of the number of Tom stamps to the number of Adam stamps is now 3:5. So I'll just write this here. You can see. So Tom to Adam is 3:5. However, the number of stamps hasn't changed. The total hasn't changed. So I could still split this up into 240, doing exactly the same thing. So I add the total ratio parts to get 8 parts. So I can say that 8 parts is equal to 240 stamps. Find out what one part is by dividing by 8. So one part is 30 stamps. And then I'll times these both by 30. So Tom gets 90 and Adam gets 150 stamps. So altogether, if you added both of these totals up, they should still equal 240. That's how you check if you've done it right. The question then says at the end, how many stamps does Tom buy from Adam? So if Tom had 72 to begin with, but he now has 90, well, what's the difference? So you do 90, take away 72, get 18 stamps. So he bought 18 stamps from Adam. Okay, any questions on this one? No? Okay, I'm going to move on to the next question. Okay, so a group of people went to a restaurant. Each person chose one starter and one main course. The number of people who chose soup, the number of people who chose prawns was 2 to 3. Of those who chose soup, so this is the key part here in the question, we need to look at how many people, what would we call our total for the soup and the prawns. So of those who chose soup, the number of people who chose lasagna to the number of people who chose curry is 5 to 3. Of those who chose prawns, the number of people who chose lasagna to the number of people who chose curry is 1 to 5. What fraction of these people chose curry? So looking at this, actually, in fact, in the actual exam, not many students got this question correct. But the key here is fraction. So that should tell you to convert the ratios to fractions. So the first thing I would write is soup to prawns. So soup and prawns. I know that 2 out of 5 okay, because there's 5 parts in total. So 2 people out of the 5 people chose soup. And I'm going to assume, well, I'm going to take this as my total, okay? So bear with me here. So this is my total. Prawns, we say that's 3 out of the 5 people chose prawns. When it says of those who chose soup, lasagna and curry. So that means we're working out of the total, okay? So of those who chose soup, 5 out of 8 chose lasagna and 3 out of 8 chose curry. So just laying it out like this, you can kind of slowly start to see what's happening. And then if we go to the prawn section, the number of people who chose lasagna to curry is 1 to 5. Lasagna is 1 out of 6, because there's 6 parts in total. Prawns is 5 out of 6. So we've written everything as a fraction now. And it says, what fraction of the people chose curry? So I'm going to look at, there's 2/5 and 3/8 there. So this means, if I was to say it as a sentence, 3/8 of the 2/5, 2 out of 5 people chose curry. So 3/8 of, which in maths is times, the 2/5 chose curry. And here we know that 5/6 of the 3 out of 5 people chose curry here. So this was lasagna. I forgot to write lasagna and curry. So this would be 3 out of 5. Sorry, let me write it back the other way. Not that it matters, but just so you understand. 5/6 of the 3 out of 5 people chose prawns. So let's multiply these now and then add them to get our total. So this gives you 6 out of 40, and this gives you 15 out of 30. Remember, you times along and times along the bottom as well. To get our final answer, you add them together. So 6 out of 40, add 15 out of 30. The denominators are different, so I'm going to make them 120. Because I know that 4 times 3 gives me 12. So I'm going to times this one by 3, get 18. And I'm going to times this by 4 to get 60. And it was a plus here, so I have to add them together to get a final answer of 78 over 120. Now, the question doesn't ask you to simplify, so you can leave it like this. Just so we can practice simplifying, I'll simplify this as well. I know that I can divide them both by 6. And so this gives me 13 out of 20. But like I said before, 78 out of 120 would give you the right answer. For soup, how did I get the denominator 8? So where is soup? Because you have to add up the 5 and 3. Okay, it's out of 8. The same way for the prawns, denominators add up to 6. So I put out of 6. Is that okay? No problem. Have you been able to screenshot it too? Okay, perfect. Okay, thank you. So we'll move on to the next question. We haven't got many left. Okay, so this is a more challenging question. So if you're aiming for the higher grades, so if you want to get from between 7 to 9 in your exams, then this is the type of question you need to work on. It looks simple when you first look at it, but there's a specific type of method that you would need to use. So this is when you involve algebra in a ratio question. So the ratio, I'm just going to zoom in a little bit. Like I said, I'm going to send this to you afterwards. Everyone that's booked on today, I'll send you these notes exactly, so you can look through them and try the questions yourself again. The ratio of Marta's hourly pay to Khalid's hourly pay is 6 to 5. So with any type of question like this, I would write Marta to Khalid is 6 to 5. both Marta and Khalid get an increase of £1.50 in their hourly pay. Okay, so before I do anything else, we need to understand what this 6 to 5 actually means. It doesn't mean that he's getting £6 and she's getting £5. It could mean that, but it doesn't necessarily have to. It means they're both getting a multiple of either the 6 or the 5. So Martha could be getting £12 and Khalid could be getting £10 and so on. She could be getting 18 and he could be getting £15, for instance. So you could keep going on until you worked out £1.50 if you had to find the ones that had £1.50 on top, but that would be quite difficult. So what we'll do is we'd use algebra instead. So we know that Martha's pay is going to be a multiple of 6 and Khalid's pay is going to be a multiple of 5. So questions like this, we can say that Martha hourly pay is 6x and Khalid's hourly pay is 5x, okay? Add in a variable there. You could add in any letter, doesn't matter. So this is their hourly pay, okay? 6x and 5x. So we're going to have to work out what the x is. So now it says they both get an increase of £1.50. So remember, increase just means add. You're adding it on. So now Marta's getting 6x plus £1.50. And Khalid's getting 5x plus £1.50. Which is now, in the question it says, the ratio is now 13 to 11. If you remember in one of the previous questions, I said to you that ratios and fractions, they can be written simultaneously. So 6x plus £1.50 to 5x plus £1.50 can be written, if I just do it here for you, 6x plus £1.50. You can write it as divided by 5x plus £1.50, and that's equal to the ratio underneath. If you think back, one of the questions was going from a fraction to a ratio. Now we've gone from a ratio to a fraction. And hopefully some of you are quite confident with solving equations like this. If not, don't worry, I'm going to go through it. So all you need to do here is we can cross multiply. So the denominators of both sides, we can times with the opposite. This only works when you have just a fraction on both sides, okay? So I'm going to do 11 times 6x plus £1.50. And that's equal to 13 times 5x plus £1.50. Okay, so cross multiplying, notice what I've done. I've brought the 11 up to the left-hand side, and I've brought the 5x plus £1.50 up to the right-hand side. Now we're going to expand these brackets and solve for x. So 11 times 6x gives me 66x, and 11 times £1.50 gives me £16.50. Then we'll do the right-hand side. 13 times 5x is 65x, and 13 times £1.50 is £19.50. Okay, so I noticed that I've got x's on both sides and I've got numbers on both sides. So I'm going to move all the x's to the left-hand side. So I can do this by subtracting 65x from both sides. So I'm left with x plus £16.50 equals £19.50. And then to get rid of that £16.50, I'll subtract. So I'm left with x is equal to 3. Okay, so that was our x. And the question says, work out the hourly pay before the increase for Marta and for Khalid. Well, the hourly pay before the increase was what we had here. Let me just box it for you so you can see. It was this. So Marta got 6x, which is 6 times 3, which gives 18. So she got £18. And Khalid, I shouldn't have put the colon there. You might get confused thinking it's a ratio. Sorry, let me change that. And Khalid's got 5x, which our x was 3. So we're doing 5 times 3, which is £15. And that's how we solve that question. Okay, any questions on this, write in the chat now or save till the end. I've got one more question I wanted to do with you, a question that many students got wrong. It was quite unique to other ratio questions that have come up. Okay, so there are 4 types of cards in a game. Each card has a black circle or a white circle or a black triangle or a white triangle. So you've got here pictures of the cards, and then you've got some ratios. So the number of cards with a black shape to the number of cards with a white shape is 3 to 5. The number of cards with a circle to the number of cards with a triangle is 2 to 7. Express the total number of cards with a black shape, so this basically, as a fraction of the total number of cards with a triangle, this one. So the fraction means divide. So in the actual exam, many students were able to identify the correct ratio parts, but they didn't write it as a fraction. They times them together, because usually these kind of ratio questions would imply that you have to times the numbers. But this one is different. So let's just go back a step. So the total number of cards with a black shape is 3 out of 8, because it's 3 plus 5 is 8. So 3 out of 8. The total number of cards with a triangle is 7 out of 9, because 2 plus 7 is 9. So because it asks for it as a fraction of the total, you're not timesing here, you're actually dividing, because you would have written it like this: 3 out of 8 of, or out of, sorry, 7 out of 9. Okay, that's what it means. But when you've got fractions over a fraction, it looks complicated, whereas you can just write it using the division sign. And hopefully you know that to divide with fractions, you times by the reciprocal, so you flip it. Some of you might know it as keep, change, flip. Yeah, you keep the first fraction the same, change the division to a times, and flip the last fraction. So now we can just times them along. 3 times 9 is 27. And 8 times 7 is 56. And that's your answer. So I think this was like 3 or 4. Yes, lovely. Okay, thank you so much. Do you have any questions that you've been waiting to ask? Please write in the chat now. If you don't, while you're waiting, I just want to say thank you for joining today's lesson. I hope you sign up to the other 20-minute lessons that I've got on. I've also got a lesson on Sunday coming up on direct and inverse proportion. This will be an actual lesson where I go through all the key steps and then some exam questions at the end. It's 50 minutes. So go onto my booking site if you would like to join that. And also, if anyone is aiming for a grade 7 to 9, if you're in a younger year, or even if you're on a grade 6 and you want to push yourself to grade 7 to 9, I'm starting a course on February the 6th, I think it is, or the beginning of February, where we'll be focusing on all the higher topics. So please do look onto that if you're interested. I've currently got a discount until the 11th, so a few more days of that. And if you have any questions, just message me. But otherwise, I hope to see you more on these live sessions. Thank you so much. I'll stay on for a few more minutes, but you're welcome to leave now if you don't have any questions.